Good evening, everyone, or good morning to some of you. My name is Monica Blacker, and you are at the Demystifying Leadership panel as part of our 2021 spring meeting. We are so glad to have you here. I have a couple announcements that I'm going to read off before we get started, and then I'm going to let all these lovely ladies introduce themselves. But first, again, thank you for coming. For some of you, I believe it's very early in the morning, so we appreciate the attendance. First of all, we want to make sure that we thank all of our IWIRC sponsors today. Thanks to the support of its valued sponsors, IWIRC has been able to expand its membership benefits, increase its educational programs and networking events, as well as grow the number of local networks worldwide. If you didn't see it, we have just started an Ireland network. IWIRC sponsors receive a valuable range of benefits, including consistent exposure of their brands to over 1,700 members from all facets of the restructuring and insolvency industry. And today we are highlighting our titanium sponsors, AlixPartners, thank you, Carrianne, Glass America, Pachulski, Stang, Zeal, and Jones, as well as our diamond sponsors, Alvarez and Marsal, Grant Thornton, and Prime Clerk. You can see these and all of the amazing IWIRC sponsors by clicking the sponsor tab on your screen. Next, I need to remind you that you will be given CLE or CPE credit for attending this panel. The pop-up code, the code will pop up in the chat room about halfway through this presentation. Make sure you write down or screenshot it, take a picture with your phone because you're going to need them. These codes will be input at the last day of the conference when you need to input your CPE and CLE details. I just got a message from Jenny that the chat for the attendees isn't working yet, but it should be working soon. If not, I'll read out the CPE and CLE numbers near the end. But assuming the chat starts to work, there will be a chat function for you attendees who have questions for the panelists. Please put your question there and it will be relayed to us. We would love for this to be an interactive panel. I don't think any of us want to sit here and lecture at you tonight. So please free to jump in with questions at any time. You don't need to save them till the end. As the CPE and CLE information will be sent to all attendees after the last session on May 27th. So please retain your codes until then. Use the chat section if it works. And again, thank you to all of our sponsors for their support for this conference and during the year. I think we're all surprised that we're still doing virtual events, but we're very happy to be doing them. It gives us the opportunity to have a wide range of women from different areas all around the globe at one time. If you saw the panel last night, we tried to highlight Latin America, and today we are expanding a little further east. So I'm like, I guess all the way around. You could go either way. So I'm gonna let these women here start with introducing themselves. And I'm just gonna pick on who's at the top of my screen. So that would be you, Ilana.
Wow, okay. Thank you, Monica. Good evening and good morning, everybody. It's such a pleasure to be on this panel. I think I have to make a very quick introduction about myself and not go into IWIRC because that is going to be some follow-up questions. So I am Ilana Volkov. I am a partner at the law firm of McGrail and Bensinger. I've been here for 2 years. Before that, I spent almost 25 years at a firm called Cole Schatz. I do all sorts of bankruptcy and corporate restructuring work, representing debtors, committees, pretty much name any kind of stakeholder in a bankruptcy case. And I have done that kind of work and can do that kind of work, as well as bankruptcy litigation. So I was just writing my notes down And it occurred to me that come September of this year, it will be 30 years that I have been doing this. So doesn't mean that I'm very experienced, just means I'm very old.
Not true, not true. All right, Carrie.
Okay, I guess I'm up next. I disagree with the being old. I am Carrianne Basler. I am a financial advisor. I'm a managing director at AlixPartners. I personally focus on assisting usually company side, you know, in or out of court restructuring. I've done interim management, you know, CFO type work, as well as, you know, financial advisory for companies in and out of bankruptcy. So I try to help them, calm them, and help them get through the process without losing their minds. So that's what I do.
And Aruni?
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. Good evening. My practice is very sort of similar to Carrianne's. I'm a senior consultant with Thornton. I've only been here about 6 months. Prior to that, I spent 16 years with Alvarez and Marcel. 12 of them were consumed by my time at working on Lehman. So again, credit side, helping companies. I also do investigations, insolvency, because part of my background is forensic accounting, and I was trained in that section too. So yeah, currently restructuring and insolvency.
Great, thank you. I also need to shout out to Rachel Biblo-Block at Aiken Gump and Rebecca Prober at FTI, who are behind the scenes, helped get this panel organized and kept all of us on track. So I appreciate the help from both of them as well. For those of you who don't know me, again, my name is Monica Blacker. I was a restructuring lawyer for 20 plus years. Actually, my 25th law school reunion is this year. And I quit practicing about 4 years ago, started a business focused on empowering women and minorities in the workplace. So some of you have probably seen me in that role. I also still practice a little bit with the Boy Scouts. And I also work for Force 10 Partners, which is a smaller financial advisory firm in the restructuring space, doing more fiduciary role work. So independent directors, trustee work, receivership, those type things. So we are ready to get going, and I see the chat is working now. So those of you watching, it's your chance to get some great information from these women. So let's start with everyone's involvement in leadership in IWIRC. To be involved in IWIRC, what have they done? And we'll hold off why it's been great for a minute, but if you can give a little bit of your IWIRC background. Carrianne?
Sure. I actually, I think everybody's got a unique path in IWIRC. I was an IWIRC member, you know, I remember for a very, very long time. But I really didn't get as involved in leadership. It's been years now though, but I actually started on the international board. So I did not do local board work. I happened to travel a ton for what I do. At the time, there was no local network where I lived. And so my involvement started at the international level, going through and working on different areas. And eventually was able to become onto the executive board. And so for those that don't know me, I am not the previous past chair, but I guess I'm the previous past chair. So 2 years ago, I was the chair, the international chair of IWIRC. So, but I've been very involved, at a lot of the going to different events and whatnot, but my leadership involvement started at international.
So you're the last non-pandemic chair, by the way.
You are absolutely accurate. I'm the last.
Right? I mean, because Michelle was pandemic.
Michelle was a pandemic chair. Leigh's hopeful that she'll only be a half and half, though.
I think we all hope that as well. Yes, I actually probably shouldn't say this in the public, but I got my 15-year-old vaccinated today by fudging her birthday, because I was like, how much is the difference? 15, 16. it shouldn't really matter. So I can get everyone in our family vaccinated. Aruni, how about you? How did you get involved?
Yeah, so mine was slightly different again, because we didn't have, IWIRC wasn't really in Asia. So in 2005, we were being encouraged by the then managing partner in the firm I worked at to start building a women's network. And encouraging is, I think, a nice way of putting it. But so we had no idea where to start. There were a group of 5 of us, and we started, we originally called it Women's Insolvency Group, WIG, and realized that it was, there's so many bits of sort of corporate governance to do. Jackie Walsh, my co-chair, had been a member of the Boston, IWIRC in Boston. So she and I co-founded the co-chairs, and we founded IWIRC in Asia in 2005. It was straight to leadership, but it was, as I said, with a group of 5 other friends that were also, so we were all junior to mid-level restructuring professionals, and I think that friendship helped because we sort of encouraged, motivated, and pulled each other along to keep it going, because there was no concept of a women's network in Hong Kong, let alone IWIRC. So yeah, it was quite a challenge. We had also no reference points like any other network. But yeah, this is probably why Cherie still probably gets a headache when she sees my name pop up, because it was a constant the backwards and forwards of Cherie help, Cherie help. But yeah, 16 years on, we have 7 networks in Asia. So that was my initial involvement. Then I went on to be on the international board for about 6 or 7 years, and I've held other positions. And currently I'm on the advisory board of 2021.
Great. And Ilana?
So, gosh, again, as I was taking notes and realizing how old I was, it also occurred to me that I became aware of IWIRC almost 20 years ago. Not exactly 20, but almost 20 years ago. I had come back from maternity leave with my second child, and I realized, that it was really important for me to get involved in networking groups and start going out there and developing business on a more serious level. I received an announcement from an attorney who was a practitioner in Boston with whom I had kind of an adversarial relationship in a case. And I believe the announcement was that she was promoted to partner, and in her list of organizations that she was involved in, she listed IWIRC. And I said, what is this? I never heard of it. I mean, I was already practicing for about 12 years and I had never heard of this organization. So I looked it up and I saw that it was a confederation of different networks. And I saw that there was no network in New Jersey, which is where I was practicing primarily. So I decided to found, with the help, sounds like Aruni, with the help of about 5 or 6 other women, a New Jersey network. Part of the benefit of doing that was I was able to designate myself to be the chair of the network. And so that allowed me to right away get involved at essentially the executive level, going to board meetings and things like that. I also became an at-large director of the international board. And so I think I was probably the chair of the New Jersey network for maybe 8 or so years, and on the at-large board probably also for about the same time. And throughout my tenure at IWIRC, I was involved on the programming committee, the finance committee, and one of the other things that I pride myself on was that I worked with Evelyn Meltzer to start I would say I think it's the original regional conference called IWIRC at the Shore. So that led, to many other regional conferences.
That's great. It's great because you guys all have a different path, a little bit different path. Mine is almost a little opposite in that I spent some time in IWIRC when I was really young, and then it fell by the wayside when I had kids. And then I got involved at the international level more because I was seeing that that's where the relationships were really like deep and being built, and where work was frankly being passed around, and then ended up becoming the Dallas chair. So I guess mine was a little bit backwards because I was at an event where it was like we all attend often, where I walked into a ballroom and it was a sea of dark suits and one table of women who I didn't know very well. I actually only knew one person at the table, and I went and sat down. I was like, I'm going to be friends with these people. Like, these are look like the fun group. And after spending kind of a weekend with them, I started asking, like, how did you guys become so close? And how do you guys all know each other? Because none of them lived in the same city. There was a wide variety of what they did. And they all to a T said IWIRC, and that they had been going to spring meeting and fall meeting and leadership and being involved that way. And that's how they had forged these relationships. And so I kind of jumped into international that way to start getting more involved. So yeah, it's, I guess the point of that is for anyone here listening that there is no set path. It doesn't have to go, it doesn't go all the one way for everyone. So whatever works for you. I mean, if you're in a place in your life where your local network is all you can handle, great, get involved there. How would you women say being involved in IWIRC has helped you outside in your outside life, whether it's your professional or personal lives?
I'll start. I would say it's helped me in both. I look at it and I say, we work very hard, and this is a hard industry. I don't care whether you're an attorney or a financial advisor, and so you're working a lot. So it's always nice to me to have, I think IWIRC's done both kind of just help me develop as a mentor, but also to know that there are other women like me. I remember clearly a conference that was held in Cleveland years ago, and I forget who the panelists were, but one of the questions was, how many people in this room are the main breadwinner? And no less than like 70 to 75% of the women like raised their hand or stood up or whatever they asked us to do. And I was like, wow. No, that's not everybody. It's not everybody who's listening today. But for me, that is such a change for kind of where I normally am and who I'm normally with. So from a personal perspective, I just think it's helped me kind of find my tribe. And from a professional perspective, it's helped me increase my brand, right? I mean, I am known within my firm and outside the firm. I'm an IWIRC loyalist. I think, the development and encouragement of women is really important. And so I think when I talk my annual reviews, I talk about what I've done at IWIRC and how I've, shown what I can do within building that brand, and how I build my firm's brand as being more diverse and whatnot. So to me, it's gone both ways. It's both just helped me personally, but professionally, you can say, I'm in leadership, and here's what I've done in leadership, and here's the people I've met. And by the way, when somebody calls and they say a creditor committee pitch is coming up, and do you know this attorney? She's out of New Orleans. I'm like, oh, do I know Laura Ashley? Of course I know Laura Ashley. Let me introduce you. And so you get those types of questions. Do you know this person in IWIRC? That to me, I found very valuable. So
how about anyone else?
Let somebody else talk.
Yeah, I can go next. I think you're right. IWIRC there are lots of benefits to being IWIRC, and there's all the usual ones, the networks, the contacts, and that again is not just nationally, it's internationally, regionally and internationally. It increases your visibility, builds your brand, hopefully helps your career, and gives you that confidence to take on roles of leadership because you've done it in a safe environment and in a supportive environment. as Carrianne said, everyone at IWIRC, it is the most encouraging and supportive group of women, like-minded women that you'd ever find. But it's also a load of other skills that I found with IWIRC I was able to develop. You learn to run events, you learn to fundraise, you learn to be financially savvy in terms of events and stuff, public speaking, negotiation skills, conflict management, and even simple things like running a meeting. Sometimes you forget, we've done this so often, that those simple tasks of, how do you setting an agenda, board packs, taking minutes, seconding meet. I remember doing this for one of the new networks, and they actually, pinged me separately going, we don't know what you're talking about. Like, what are you asking us to do? Because I'd done the agenda, we had the meeting, I wrote the minutes, and all I was asking from the next meeting was like, can we second these? And they were like, we don't know what you're talking about. So I think it's really great that IWIRC gives us this opportunity to help to help ourselves and so many others along the way, so that, you're preparing them, and when they get out there, they're ready to roll. But I think I have to agree with Carrianne, the best thing for me about IWIRC is the friendships. I've been doing this for almost 16 years. And yeah, it's absolutely fantastic, because these are no longer IWIRC colleagues or IWIRC names, they are actually friends. And especially in times of things like pandemic, it's so heartening. Like when Hong Kong went down first, and it was really bad and stuff like that, the rest of the world thought that, I wish they had been actually saved. And it was just a case of SARS, but so many people wrote to me saying, are you okay? Are you still in Hong Kong? Are you okay? So that's the level of this thing. We haven't been, in each other's pockets, but they're just, are you in Hong Kong? Still in Hong Kong? Are you okay? And that meant a lot.
Yeah, I think for a lot of us, the line between friends, IWIRC colleagues has blurred significantly, that they're, most people fit into both categories now.
Well, but the thing is, think about when you talk about networking, what you get out of it. And, when I know that we talk to folks in my firm, it's developing relationships. You want to work with people that you like. You want to work with those friends. Monica's given me leads before, right? Is that because she's my friend, or because she knows I do a good job, or because I'm my work? It can be all of the above, right? It's not just one of those things. And so it's the relationships and whatnot that I think, Monica, you're absolutely right, but I think that kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah, and Ilana, do you feel like starting the New Jersey network, that gave you some kind of brand gravitas, that that people felt like that it elevated? I would feel like that probably elevated you in a way that is hard to replicate. Maybe the only other way to replicate it is write a book, not people, be a published author. But do you feel like that really helped you become, a really well-renowned practitioner and get business?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail right on the head there, Monica. That's really what I was going to say, because it was very hard to go after Carrianne and Aruni with all of their amazing things to say about the benefits of being an IWIRC. But absolutely, I mean, the first and foremost thing was it did give me the gravitas in my immediate community, both from men and from women. And it was a major piece of conversation, especially if you go into an ABI event or a TMA event and you have, a banner that says IWIRC chair or IWIRC. People were always like, well, what's IWIRC? And you have to explain it, and you really get people, certainly, years ago, people didn't know about this organization. So, even if you're talking to male colleagues, counterparts at other firms, you would say, you really should have so-and-so join this organization or such and such. And when it came from me, I think it just gave the organization a lot more credibility. So definitely the gravitas. The other things that I would say that IWIRC has helped, in addition to everything that Carrianne and Aruni have said, I would say a couple of things. One is certainly the confidence, the confidence in yourself, whether it's in the fact that, you know, you can go pitch a case, and if you have people that you know in the room through IWIRC connections, it really bolsters your sort of credibility to your counterparts at your firm. Excuse me. On the public speaking aspect, which Aruni mentioned, I mean, certainly being on panels or leading conference calls where you're planning events or whatever, and you're the lead person speaking about and organizing a panel, or you're actually speaking at a panel. These are, you know, small things, but not everybody can do that right out of the box. Certainly not in front of people who aren't your, you know, your friends. And so it definitely gave me confidence to go out there and speak at other panels where I didn't have so many friends in the room. So that was really nice. But the most important thing is the friendship and the networking. And I would say that Carrianne hit the nail on the head, is you really can't even draw the line anymore after being in an organization for so many years as to who's your friend, because of IWIRC or because of, you know, something else. I have built so many friendships over the years, all over the country, all over the world. And, you know, I'm sure that I can pick up the phone in any time of need, whether it's to introduce me to somebody or help me pitch a case or whatever, or just, you know, people calling me randomly and saying, look, I need help in this jurisdiction or that jurisdiction. So to me, that was the reason why I joined IWIRC in the first place, was to build the connections and to be able to originate business. And, you know, it hasn't disappointed me.
Monica, before you move on, there was one thing I was thinking about as we were all talking. You know, we've all been in IWIRC for a very long time, and I think there probably are hopefully some, you know, younger folks on this call going, okay, that's great to find. You ladies are, you know, to Ilana's point, bold. I'd like to say ageless, but bold. But one of the things to do is, if you want to get involved on a committee or go to, you want to come to when we actually have these live events, spring meeting, get involved on like the programming committee, because it's really a lot easier to do when you're trying to justify to somebody more senior why you want to go to DC for the conference. Well, I'm on the planning committee for the IWIRC conference, so I really should attend. I mean, it helps you justify that expenditure of your firm to help them support you. You're not just attending, you're part of it. You're part of the planning, you're part of the leadership. And I found that to be so much more effective, even for me, throughout the years, to say, I need to go, right? I'm planning and it's important, and, or I'm this role or that role. So keep that in mind as well, because it's a way to meet people. It's a way to start developing these relationships we're talking about. And it's a way to kind of remind your firm, hey, I'm on, I've got a leadership role, I should do this. And then you can be and meet those people that we're all talking about.
I would actually, it just occurred to me that you now that you brought that up, Carrianne, one other thing that I wanted to point out as far as like just meeting people and expanding your network is it's not just about meeting people either at the local level, or if you're lucky enough to go to international events to meet people there. The one other thing that I found by being on, whether it was the programming committee or the finance committee or other committees of the board, it made me, first of all, think outside the box and act outside the box and outside of my comfort zone, whereby, people were delegated responsibilities, whether, let's, for example, say on a finance committee, you have the finance chair, and then there's a list of, 100, 200 organizations that IWIRC wants to target. And you basically sit there and you break down, which person is going to reach out to which organization to start dialing for dollars. So even if you didn't know anybody, you were still essentially forced to reach out to the contact person and say, hey, I'm so-and-so from IWIRC, can you please give us money? Last year, you were a sponsor of this amount of money. Can you give us at least that kind of, level of sponsorship? So again, it forced you to basically contact, random people you didn't know. You were forced to ask for money, but you believed in it because the organization is so great. And so you just further, I think, expanded your web of people that you knew, or, at least by email, by doing this. So again, it was very helpful in my rearing process to be able to do this.
We don't force, we encourage, we give opportunity. Seriously.
Right.
Yeah,
yes, we present the opportunity.
No forcing, no forcing.
Yeah,
we call
that's right. I think
voluntold. We've been voluntold.
in my previous firm, being involved, but was fine. The fact that we started the Hong Kong network we're growing Asia very quickly, but it's all well and good. Because for me, it was not just a short trip, it was halfway around the world, or pretty much, yeah. And so the only times I really got sponsored was if I was speaking on a panel, because it's a commercial world, they need to justify it. And I remember I'd been involved for years. The first time they actually put their hand up and said, no, we'll pay for it, was when I was Jackie and I were awarded the Fretner Award, and there was a ceremony which I didn't know. I didn't even know I was nominated. We didn't know we were nominated. And I think when the announcement came out, they said, no, I think we'll pay for this one. And they, I must say, with the years of being involved and being able to show your commitment to something, it stands you in so much good stead with respect to other things, because even without the support, even without the recognition, the fact that we kept going and the kind of women we started attracting into the IWIRC network, I think that does incredibly good things for your long-term career and in intangible ways.
Yeah, I think we would all agree that you get out of IWIRC an exponential amount of the effort that you're putting in, right? That it's not even a 1-for-1 or even a 2-for-1. I think the of us would probably feel like we have really been lucky and have gotten a lot of benefits from being involved in IWIRC. When I first started, like I said, I wasn't really particularly involved. It was one of those things I just signed up for because it was a women's organization, and I wasn't successful in it, frankly, because I wasn't really putting anything in it. I maybe showed up to a meeting every once in a while, but it was I didn't have my heart and soul in it, I guess is what I would say. So when I came back around to it and it was just the right time, I really started putting that kind of effort in, and it's been one of the greatest, things that I've done in my career, I would say, not to exaggerate, but really so much of my work has come from IWIRC members. So much of my support network is made up of women that I've met through IWIRC. And as Carrianne said, everyone really does want to do business with people they like and trust. I mean, that's just the bottom line of business development, right? And so having these relationships really makes that a big difference. So let's jump on to IWIRC and IWIRC leadership this year has definitely put an extra focus on IWIRC being a tool to support women and diversity, inclusion, and belonging. As most people know, we have a new committee that's focused on that. And how do you three see IWIRC as a tool for promoting those ideas? I mean, obviously we're a women's organization, but even being able to diversify our membership, what do you see as ways that IWIRC has helped you do that?
Well, I can start with that, Monica. Again, I would say that one of the most important things that IWIRC has given me was the confidence in myself to speak on behalf of myself and my colleagues, my female colleagues, as well as just becoming acutely aware of the lack of women in leadership at firms. Now, maybe not as much now, but certainly when I first started in the organization, you know, it was a big topic of conversation. As you just said, you'd walk into a room, whether again, it was, you know, annual spring meeting or the NCBJ or whatever it was, you can, you know, clearly see that the majority of the attendees in the room were, you know, were men, and that the women were, you know, really a small minority. And it was always the case. You go to court, you see few women. You know, you'd go to a meeting, you see even fewer women. So again, it gave me the confidence to, I would say, to approach my firm at the time and talk to them about the fact that there was not enough female leadership at the firm, and just female involvement in important organizations and things like that. And so as a result of that, of the many, many conversations I had with the leaders of the firm, there were things that the firm did that was, you know, more sort of beneficial to women, in recognition of the fact that we're just as, you know, as well suited to contribute to the success of the firm as a man. And whether it was that I was able to participate on the finance committee, or to be able to co-found a women's affinity group, or to be able to have the firm recognize that it was important enough to have a woman member on the executive committee, and, you know, and things like that. So again, it just, not only the confidence, but also I would say the acute recognition. And I use that term purposefully because, you know, yes, I would see it around, but I wasn't as aware as, like, you know, a 30-something, that there was a paucity in leadership positions and roles at my firm.
So sorry, go, Aruni.
No, you go. That's okay. Well, I was going to say very similar. When we started in Asia, I can confidently say there wasn't a single practice leader in any of the firms, finance or law firms in the R&I space. There are very few MDs, but over the 15 plus years, from like India to Japan, the growth in women in leadership has been phenomenal. And this is not because women suddenly became more capable, competent, or skilled. I mean, we didn't wake up and something happened, but it was just, I think, that we were able to, one, recognize, as Ilana said, the gap and the void, but also we nurtured each other, we nurtured each other's aspirations, we encouraged and helped, you know, but sort of bond together in that common purpose. And sort of along the same lines as the IWIRC Warrior Award, that's internationally, we started one in Asia. And the largest challenge we still face is not that there aren't fantastic women doing fantastic work, it is the unwillingness to self-nominate, self-promote. And so the ability of IWIRC as a network to lend support to, you know, these women and encourage them and sort of, you know, promote them on their behalf, I think is fantastic. Is something fantastic about IWIRC, and leadership gives you that extra platform to do so. And the other big thing, I think, is the mentoring. As we've grown, we've realized the impact we can have on bringing other women through. And there was a recent study by one of the recruitment firms, which had some staggering statistics, but also highlighted that women and minorities were the most likely to say that mentoring relationships were extremely important, you know, for their professional strength and development. So I think we should, you know, that's one of the things that I became more aware of.
Yeah. I'd say, I've got a slightly different perspective because I'm very fortunate. AlixPartners has been a supporter of IWIRC since the beginning. Deb Cups, one of my retired colleagues, was one of the first members of IWIRC. She started the Michigan network. She was the previous chair. So I've always had kind of our firm supporting IWIRC. But what I've found that I've been able to do is, when I'm meeting with some of the men, that maybe there's one or two women in there, maybe they're junior women. I'm like, well, so is, we'll be at maybe, something where they've been invited along. Oh, are you a member of IWIRC? Well, no. And then I can give them information right then and there, but also tell their partners, you really want her to be doing that. Here's why you want your junior associates to be involved in IWIRC. It's good for her, it's good for your firm. And I can, really encourage and support maybe some of these women who don't have that support network. It's the mentoring that you talked about, Aruni. There are women out there, and there hopefully, maybe there are women on this, Zoom that don't have a lot of senior women, that don't have that ability. And so IWIRC gives you those mentors that you may not have within your own firm to kind of bounce things off of, to say, I'm running into this. What do you think? How can I deal with it? How do I deal with some of these situations? And so I feel like, from an IWIRC leadership perspective, I can give some gravitas to like, okay, you should really not only, you should send your women to IWIRC, you should support IWIRC, because it will come back to you, threefold, to some of the more senior partners that may not understand and may not say, hey, I've had senior partners that I know that I've been around for a long time. They're like, how do you not know about IWIRC? But let me tell you about IWIRC. So it's ridiculous that you don't know, but let me educate you right now.
Right.
So,
Monica, I'm sorry, can I just pick up on a point that Aruni mentioned, which I think is so important. One of the things that we haven't talked about, obviously, in addition to all of the relationships that we make, when you go to conferences, IWIRC conferences, you hear about, and you of course are one of the people who talks about this, you hear about the differences between men and women and how they view each other, and the fact that women don't put themselves out there as readily as men for different opportunities. They don't view themselves as, as capable of applying for a particular job or for a particular position in a firm. So many times we've had panels on this topic, and I always say to myself, why am I going to this panel again? I've heard it so many times, but every time I go, I always say, I'm so happy that I did this, because it's just a constant reminder of the fact that it's important to essentially pay it forward. Because, as I get older, and I keep saying this, but I always like to encourage women, whether it's my colleagues or whether it's my friends, to say, look, we as women don't do the same. We don't approach different opportunities the same way that a man would. A man would see an opportunity and say, look at the qualifications and say, I don't see that I don't meet these qualifications, even though he clearly does not. A woman would look at the list of qualifications, again, for a job or for a position, and say, wait a second, I don't think I can do this. Well, I don't like that. I don't like when people say that to me. And having attended so many different panels, including of yours, that gave me essentially the credibility to say to, again, whether it's colleagues or friends. I recently had this conversation with a friend of mine whose daughter is graduating college and was looking at different jobs. And I said, and I said to her, listen, Emma definitely has these qualifications, even though she doesn't necessarily fit, in the square peg of like what it lists, but she definitely has it. And so again, I just think that that's a very important thing, is going to these conferences, going to the panels, taking something, at least one thing away from what is being talked to you, and whether it's paying it forward or applying it to yourself, those are very, very important things. And I really wouldn't have necessarily been sensitized to these sort of nuances had I not been, going to the conferences and listening to the likes of you.
Well, thank you. Thanks for the shout out there. I was going to say that's part of one of the best things about IWIRC is that it does give a voice a lot of times to women who aren't comfortable using their own, aren't willing to self-promote or self-nominate. I mean, I just laugh, you know, so we did this panel yesterday with another group of women, and how many times it has shown up either in my Instagram or LinkedIn feed because someone else has posted it, you know, saying that all of us did a great job, and then it ended up on, you know, that IWIRC network page, and then, I mean, my feed is just full of it. And so for people who aren't comfortable promoting themselves or saying, you know, hey, I'm great at this, or I'm doing this, IWIRC presents such an opportunity. I think everyone in IWIRC is really great about that, you know, taking a screenshot, posting it. Carrianne does it a ton. She's really good at it. And, you know, so use it. It has given a lot of us a voice to use when younger or maybe just less comfortable women aren't using their voice, right? So that we can use it for them, which is, I think, the most important thing as we become more seasoned, is that we use our voice to help the women who just don't have one yet, either because they don't feel like they do, or because really they're just not there yet. So I'm gonna move to one quick,
sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Aruni.
Go. No, I just wanted to say just one thing about, as I think about leadership and us women in leadership in the post-COVID world, I think we have to be very mindful of the impact of COVID. And, you know, to your point about being a pre-COVID chair or a post-COVID chair, we are the post-COVID leadership, women in leadership. There is such an onus on us to make sure that we make a difference. We include people, we make sure the diversity isn't lost, you know, whether it's gender diversity or minorities or whatever. Pipelines are falling away. There was a recent study of women, female associates and senior associates. People are dropping off partnership tracks. It is going to be imperative that we step up. We make sure that we are acutely aware of what new leadership in the new post-COVID world looks like, and how we set that, you know, make sure that we roll that positively for women, given there was a comment recently, Melinda Gates on BBC or CNN saying 2/3 of the job losses in Africa have been women. There was another McKinsey study which said women are 1.8 times more likely to lose their jobs than women. And this against what was already, you know, established that women were in a disadvantaged position. The numbers are staggering. Poverty's gone up, you know, and women and children are the biggest losers. Sorry.
That's a really great point, because you are so right. The percentage of harm to women through a pandemic is staggering, and how swayed it is, some of it being the obvious, right? Like just taking on caregiver roles and how having to teach kids and make 3 meals a day and all those things. But there are going to be a lot who fall out of the pipeline or just had to back, and we've got to be there for them when they're ready to come, you know, to come back in and welcome them with open arms and help prop them up.
Yeah, I think about who's losing, who hasn't come back, and see that, you know, whether you can reach out and help them come back.
Yeah, agreed. So we are getting CLE and CP credit for this. So before we go to the chat and questions, I wanted to ask each of you if there's anything that you would warn people or things to watch out for in being in leadership. I'm not saying specifically, but if you're in a leadership role or you're serving on a board, what are some of the risks or concerns that you should have? Because right now we're just telling everyone to jump in with their 2 feet and, you know, embrace it. Is there anything you would tell people to be concerned about?
Well, I would say be concerned about, you know, we all have a problem saying no, and I really want everybody who wants to be involved in leadership to be involved in leadership. But I almost think it's worse if you say, I want to be involved in leadership. I want to have the title and I don't want to do the work, because people will know you didn't do the work. And it actually, I think, hurts you. It hurts you, it hurts your brain. You don't get as much out of it. You don't get as much out of the organization. And so, you know, if you're saying, hey, I'm overwhelmed and I have too many things going on, but I really want to do this, then maybe say, okay, maybe now is not the right time. Maybe it needs to be a year from now when I'm not doing this other thing. Or maybe I don't need to do the other thing because I really want to do this. Because I've seen people do that and people notice, and it hurts you more than it helps you. It's not just a no, it hurts you. So.
Yeah, and I would say I've since my transition from Alvarez, one of the things I've done is take on sort of board positions on not-for-profit organizations. And I think that's a real learning experience. There are risks because these are board positions where you're named in the company's registry, and the company's ordinance in Hong Kong, for example, has a long list of things of directors to be mindful of. But I think if you largely put it into sort of buckets, it's the physical harm, the financial reputation, the failure, and the accountability. Those are the things you sort of really need to be aware of. But that said, you get back a bit, very much like IWIRC, what you get back in being a board is phenomenal. It is such a wonderful experience because you get to work with these, not always women, but really diverse groups of people who are at a different point in their life, in different industries. The nonprofit I work for, I didn't even know, I was embarrassed at how little I knew about poverty in Hong Kong. But it really opens your mind. And I think it truly helps you become a better human being. So yeah, don't be afraid to take on the listing. But as Carrianne said, don't take it just because it looks good or sounds good, because there are serious implications, especially those ones that are boards and not independent directors and stuff like that on listed companies and stuff.
So one of the things that I learned by being the chair of the New Jersey network is the importance of corporate governance. And I would say that not so much that it was a drawback, the corporate governance, but obviously the international group as well as your local network has governing documents, and each governing document is probably different from network to network, but it's very important to understand exactly how your network operates and to make sure that you have elections, and to make sure, I think somebody on the panel said earlier, to keep minutes, to make sure basically that you're complying with corporate governance as if you were running a corporation or something else. And the other thing is that if you are going to be a network chair or something to that effect, a drawback would be if you're not surrounding yourself with good people. So the lesson to be learned is surround yourself with good people who are going to help you in a pinch, or, if you're in a bind or do whatever, people who are going to run events, because it's not a one-person show. And again, that was something that I learned throughout the years, is there were times when I couldn't even go to like our premier annual event because of work. And I just made sure that, people would go and people would attend and this, that, and the other thing. So again, lesson learned, surround yourself with good people.
So true. So we have received a few questions. Yay. And Roberta wanted to make sure she said to you, Aruni, that you did that's such an important truth about the pandemic. And we really need to keep thinking about ways to help women post-pandemic. And Roberta also asked if anyone has personal stories about times when things did not go your way in a leadership role, and what did you learn from that? And I'm going to combine that question with Sejal's question, which is, what is one of your most memorable IWIRC moments? So maybe we can have like the best and the worst.
Well, mean, I'll give more of a generic because, you know, and by the way, I had many memorable IWIRC moments. I talked about one of them earlier. The fact that Sejal asked that question brings up a whole host of memorable moments that I can't talk about in this forum.
They all involved wine, is what I know. If Sejal was involved, there was wine.
But
they were great moments.
You know, when things didn't go my way, I mean, I think there's times, and this is, I think, in any leadership role, I think we're a very collaborative group, but, you know, especially when you're involved in things like the executive committee, you know, there are things where you need to vote. And I think what happens is that we are not the US, you know, Senate, or where it's like, okay, we're going to go 4-3. You know, it makes it a little bit more challenging because if you want to get something done, we really like to get everybody on our side and go forward. And yes, if there's one or two holdouts, we'll probably still do it. But, you know, I think it just helped me develop those skills of being able to try to get consensus and, you know, around difficult decisions. But it also, there are times, this is a volunteer organization. Mm-hmm. So I think it also, you have to figure out how to deal with some of the, you know, with either personalities or conflicts that come up to the leaders. Like, I'm having this issue, what do I do? And you're like, crap, like if I was just a member, I wouldn't have to deal with this, but I'm not. I actually been in a leadership role, so now I've got to figure out and try to find a solution. So it's not so much that they didn't go my way as much as you didn't realize at the time when you got involved in this that I'd have to deal with some of this, you know, and go, that's, you know, as much as we say everything's awesome about being a leader, that's not so awesome. I wouldn't have to do that if I wasn't in leadership. But again, it also helped me develop those skills so I can have hard conversations with people in other arenas, right? And try to build that consensus. So that was it. I'll let
learning that not everybody thinks exactly the way you do.
Yeah, just because they're all not right, I mean, it's all good.
Exactly.
Well, when you look up the qualifications or the characteristics of a leader, like on Google, you know, there's many things that come up. And naturally, one of the things is, you know, can you build consensus? You're not going to strong arm people, but you have to reason with them, and you have to explain things, and you have to explain why things should be done a certain way. And it really is a skill to be able to do that. For me personally, I would just say that, you know, I was always nervous about the events that we were planning. And I was always nervous. Are we going to go over budget? Are we not going to have enough people? Is this not going to be a fun event? If we were inviting men, were they going to come? And so naturally, throughout the years, there were times when, you know, certain events, even ones that I was super, super excited about, and I was like, this is the best idea that, you know, I or anybody else ever had, it was a downer. So those were, you know, that should be the worst thing that should happen to anybody as a leader, right? But those were really just the things that I worried about. And sometimes they were fabulous events and sometimes they weren't. But in the end, overall, everybody, you know, the people who attended had a good time. So, and you know, the best or most memorable event, there are just so many, Carrianne, right? There's just so many, whether it's from leadership conferences or, you know, going overseas or just meeting so many wonderful people. But to me, sort of the feather in my cap was when IWIRC New Jersey awarded me Woman of the Year, I think about 5 years ago. And there were so many people who came out to celebrate that and to support me. I got a huge, beautiful plaque from my firm, and it was just really, really nice. And it was a nice, you know, nice compliment.
For very similar to, sort of on that similar vein as Ilana said, we planned when IWIRC Hong Kong started, our first event was the inaugural event, was we had a judge speak and stuff like that. But then we did our first mixed event, open event, and it was a drinks event. The Aruni bar had just opened in Hong Kong on the 35th floor of one of the buildings. So it was a bit ambitious, it was expensive, but we wanted to do it in style. And we didn't expect more than like 20 people. And on the day, Jackie and I, but similarly, we were hoping we'd at least get 20 people. And 3 or 4 days before, we had about 15, 18, encouraging a few others. On the day of the event, it blew out to like 60, because suddenly everyone decided in Hong Kong, everyone that was anyone needed to be there. We had no budget. We had no money. We were like, okay, so we were running backwards and forwards. Literally no work got done that afternoon. And that's the other thing about leadership, at least my early days with IWIRC, I would have to do IWIRC during the day to get the event or whatever, and then work the entire night to get my chargeable hours done. So there is a downside to leadership. But yeah, we got there, and we couldn't cancel. We just got there, and we were, I'm not sure what we were hoping for, actually. We had sort of our own personal credit cards thinking, and then one of the managing directors at Alvarez just put his platinum Amex on the card, and we rolled with it that night. And I didn't even want to see the bill the next morning. I'm like, take it away. So that was a really hair-raising experience. And then I think we've had conflict in boards, and having to gently ease people out who'd been on boards, who'd originally been supportive, but then sort of thought they can just be there and use the fact that they were on the IWIRC board and weren't really contributing. So we had to have some hard discussions. Elections, voting for positions have sometimes been, but I think the big takeaway is you do it, and it's better to do it in these sort of smaller, safer environments, because you then develop the confidence and the skills which you can take on.
So
I think highlights.
I have one other question I want us to get to, but apparently some people's chat is not working.
Oh.
So I am going to read out the CLE CPE code for those people. It is the number 2, and then letter D as in dog, L as in Larry, 8211. So 2DL8211, just in case you're having trouble. And so and we're really kind of out of time, but for people who want to stay and hear the answer to this, we can go a few more minutes. Christian Conway asked, where do you suggest new members first get involved? Is it regional, committees? How does a person go about getting involved on the regional level? And so I'll throw that out to you. I was going to say, I think we all have different answers or different ways we became involved. On last night's panel, it was a really great suggestion to, if you're having a difficult time finding a way to get involved with planning a regional event, like IWIRC on the Shore, or IWIRC in the Bayou, or IWIRC on the Vine. So that you have the opportunity to meet people. Maybe if your network isn't that active, you're in city or in town network, and so you need to spread your wings a little bit. I think that's a great opportunity. But did any of y'all have thoughts on how to get best involved as a new member?
I would agree, but I would also say, for example, if you want to get involved in the regional, go look on the IWIRC website, figure out who the contact person is, or even just email Sherry and say, I want to get involved. And I say email Sherry, it's like info@iwork.com or sbedker@iwork.com. I think it all goes to Sherry or Jenny here. And usually if you email somebody, anybody, frankly, anybody on here, we're going to be like, oh, you want to get involved? Let me introduce you to this person, because it won't take long. Because everybody's always looking for help. Everybody always wants to get people involved. So figure out what if it's your local network, email the chair and say, I'm looking to get involved, but I don't know how to start, and they will help you.
If you don't know where to find that information, it is actually on the IWIRC website. You go to iwork.com, every network's board is on there, their membership is on there. When you can travel again, when you're in a new city, look and see like who's an IWIRC in Trenton, New Jersey that I could have a drink with or have dinner with if you don't have plans. Like, use it as a tool. Get involved.
Yeah.
So
well, I think the biggest challenge is what do you want to do? There are lots of opportunities. If you work out what you can, what your passions are, and how much time you have, the rest will just fall into place.
Yeah,
I
would echo.
Our new diversity and inclusion committee could use members as well. So I just got that text on the side.
I would echo what no, that's okay. I was just going to say I would echo what Carrianne suggested too, is that you just would look on the IWIRC website, see the different committees that the organization has, find out, figure out what interests you, whether it's membership, whether it's sponsorship, programming, there are so many communications. I mean, I'm sure I'm missing so many of them, and just email the chair or the vice chair of those organizations. There is also, I believe, the chair of the regional planning committee, and just whether it's Asia, I guess it depends on what region you're in, how active your local board is, but at a minimum, go to some of the events on the local level, start meeting people and talking to them and seeing what opportunities exist at the local level. And then at the international level, I found everybody, very supportive of anything of any time or anything that I wanted to commit. So all of that information is public, and it's just a matter of trying to figure out what interests you and just reaching out to the people who are, chairing or vice chairing those committees.
Yeah. This like during the pandemic, the number of events that IWIRC has put out and planned during this my earphone has put out this time. I feel like almost every day something IWIRC that you could do. So log on, get involved. You don't even have to put real pants on. Like, you can just do it from your home. I sign up a lot of times for events that are in other networks, just because it's my opportunity to see, and colleagues that aren't here in Dallas. So use those opportunities. Like, it's fine. If the event's happening in New York, but you're in Alabama, like, it's fine. You can still do it. They'll probably still even send you, if it's a if it's a cocktail tasting, they'll send you the kit if they can ship to your state. So, use the pandemic, use the upside of the pandemic, the Zoom opportunities to get involved as well. Well, ladies, thank you so much. We ran a little bit over, but that's all right. And I really appreciate all of you either staying up or up early to be here with us, and hope to see you guys all in person soon.
Nice.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep safe, everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Monica, for hosting.
Thanks, Monica.